Well, Pamela, it's so great to speak with you today. Thanks for joining me.
Yes. Thank you, Diane. I'm excited to speak with you.
I know I'm glad that we're finally making it happen. It's been a work in progress getting this date scheduled, but I'm glad that you're here. Before we get into
Yes.
our conversation today, why don't you go ahead and introduce who you are and then we'll get to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know how many moms struggle with just feeling overwhelmed with where to start with helping their teen prepare for college? Well, what I do is I partner with those busy moms to help their teen with finding a college that feels like home without overpaying. And what we do is we give them a clear roadmap to take away that sense of overwhelm and also gives them the opportunity to focus on just nurturing that teen relationship as opposed to arguing about college. And the results of our work is that 95% of our students have been admitted to their top choice colleges, and the average scholarship is $75,000. But before we go on, enough about me. I want to thank you, especially for helping, just allowing me to be on your show. I've enjoyed your show for a while now and really appreciate just how you do your interviews, the questions, and everything else. A lot of care with managing expectations and
Oh,
transparency. And
yeah.
so I just want to say for all of your listeners, you just don't know how lucky you are to have Diane as a host. And if you haven't already, be sure to leave a 5-star rating and review wherever you're listening. So,
Oh, well, that's really sweet of you to say.
thank
It's been
you.
an evolution of getting really comfortable at
Mhm.
asking the right questions. I feel like I used to
Yeah.
be the comedic value when I had first started the podcast, just because my friend that I
Mhm.
started it with was more buttoned up than I was. So now I'm like, okay, how
Yeah.
do I balance having a personality and not feeling so buttoned up, but
Right.
also being honest and realistic with my guests? So I appreciate you saying that. It means a lot to me.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's noticeable that
Oh,
you
well,
put a
thank
lot
you.
of care into it. So I appreciate that.
Well, I'm flipping it back on you, Pamela, because you're the guest
Yeah.
today. So
Okay.
I'm curious how you got into this line of work. Was there something that you saw that prompted you to say, this is where I want to spend my time and effort?
Actually, it happened when some parents asked me if I would support them with helping their teen finding the right high school and the right summer programs. At the time, I had middle schoolers, and the other parents had middle schoolers as well, and saw the work that I was doing with my own children. They knew that I worked with schools, but wasn't necessarily sure what I did. And when they asked me if I would help them, that's when I put together the program and I based the program on my dissertation work.
Okay, so diving into how you help people, you say that you help parents see past the sticker price of college to truly understand
Mhm.
the cost and benefits of different institutions. How do you do
Right.
that?
Absolutely. I start our framework with their teen as opposed to starting it with the colleges because so many times when you go and look at the sticker price, that's really not what families are paying. And I really want to disabuse parents of that fear that is all about what you see online because it's not. And the key thing is that it's about what's a fit for your teen and thinking about your team first. And that really gets it away from just looking at the brand names or looking at the sticker price to determine what's a good fit for their team.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Making it work for them, not or I'm sorry, the opposite. Like I think sometimes we're like, okay, I have to fit this mold of this school. And it's like, no,
Right.
I'm the one paying the money. They need to fit what I need. So yeah, that makes totally
Exactly.
sense. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's really about, just those factors that support their team success with thriving in college. Because the thing that we as parents don't want to have happen is to get that call where our teen, is unhappy and they want to leave. And so it's
Mm.
all about the preparation and positioning beforehand and planning beforehand throughout their high school years that can really position them for success wherever they go.
Okay, interesting. That's
Yeah.
funny. I actually just had a conversation about, I mean, this was similar with a
Mhm.
friend on Saturday, and he was saying he went to the Columbus College of Art and Design for his artistic talents, and he had also said he applied to the University of Cincinnati, but that their
Mhm.
art school was a little bit more academic versus like looking at the
Right.
portfolio he had created, and so his creativity wasn't as valued at one school versus the other. Again, this was just his personal experience and his
Yeah.
point of view, but it was like, okay, do you want the academics or do you want the portfolio? It
Right.
depends on what school. It depends on what school.
It really does. It really does. And the thing that I always share with parents is that there are a number of schools that are a good fit for your teen. And it's not just about any one college being the one college that's a great fit for them. And when you think about it in terms of the wealth of opportunities that are out there, that takes away that pressure of just trying to get into one college, because then that's when you do start to try to mold yourself for that one college. But when it's several colleges that can be a good fit, then that really changes it, and it changes, really that perspective of the team first.
Mm, mhm,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, but I am wondering, so are there
Mhm.
critical factors that every student does need to find the right fit? Is there something that we can't really avoid when making those decisions?
That's a good question. And I would ask it a little bit differently in terms of thinking about what are those factors. So, the five factors that we consider in terms of a fit would be academic, social, financial, vocational, and cultural fit. And so, with those five factors and how they blend with that student, that's when we then look at the colleges. And so, with that being said, I
Yeah.
think the key things for students to do when it
Uh-huh.
comes to actually, taking action as far
Mhm.
as their application portfolio for colleges, it's
Mhm.
going to be really, having a transcript, taking
Mhm.
classes that are preparing them for college. It's
Mhm.
going to be participating in one or two meaningful activities. It's not about trying to participate in every activity because no one really has time for that. And they don't necessarily have to take any testing to get in.
Okay.
And in many cases, they may be writing an essay, but that's like the basics of it as far as what they will be submitting in their
Okay.
applications. But
Okay.
the actual list is based on those factors, those five factors of fit for that teen.
Okay. So how does the CALM, C-A-L-M approach help students and parents develop a
Mhm.
mindset that accelerates leadership in college success?
Yes. Absolutely. So the CALM stands for College and Accelerated Leadership Methodology, and it's our
Oh, okay.
framework for actually forefronting the teen. And in that framework, it's the teen that owns the process, not the parent. And that's oftentimes where so much of the stress comes in, is because we as moms, we kind of take over because we want, our kid to, be sure that they're happy and to be in a certain school. And so we start doing it for them. And that, in fact, actually works against their success. And so in our framework, it's about the teen owning the process. And even with us as their coach, we're coaching and guiding, but we're not doing it for them. They still need
Mm,
to research the colleges and get to know them as well. And a lot of what we're assisting our moms to do is to learn how to let go.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So, one of my last questions I have for you, well, actually, we can talk about whatever else too, but this
Yeah.
is one of the last ones that I had thought about
Mhm.
hidden costs that we often
Yes.
overlook. And that can
Yes.
cause financial strain, not just now, but
Mhm.
long term if we're overlooking those
Right.
things. So, how do people
Right.
navigate those?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest hidden costs is a lack of understanding about the renewal aspect of any awards that they receive in freshman year. That would be the biggest because oftentimes there could be colleges that will say, these are the monies that you get for freshman year. And you want to make sure that that's renewable because if not, that means that you're paying in the out years. And sometimes there can be an increase that parents will incur in the out years that's not discussed in freshman year. And so that would be something that I would want all of our moms to know about, especially is understanding the differences between what is awarded in freshman year versus what's renewed for sophomore, junior, and senior year.
Okay, that makes sense. So obviously on the Minimalist Moms podcast, I talk about intentional living, minimalism, but really intentional
Mhm.
living. And so I'm going to ask you, how does what you are doing align with living an intentional parenthood, like motherhood, and
Oh,
just align with my
absolutely.
show?
Yeah, absolutely. It aligns very well with our program because we're about doing those things that make sense for your teen. And it is intentionality from ninth all the way through 12th grade. And so, one of the big questions that we get so often is, you know, what about my teen being quote unquote well rounded? And when I hear well-rounded, to me, that's doing a little bit of everything. And it's like, no, that is not the idea of it at all, because that means then as a mom, you're running around taking them a lot of places and chauffeuring. And I have three, and I remember what that was like. And it was like, no, what is it that you care about or interested in doing?
Okay.
That's what we want you to do as a student and not running your mom ragged with taking
Mhm.
you to 4 and 5 different activities to try them out for the sake of well-rounded, because
Okay.
that works against just that sense of, um, peace and intentionality that comes with doing what you care about, but not doing something for the sake of college.
Hmm. Okay, two more things that just popped into my head. So, in regards to being well-rounded, are you saying
Mhm.
it's better to maybe focus on I'm a great football player as opposed to like I'm playing a sport every season and I'm in the debate team and I'm on the art club. So you're saying just if you really focus
Mhm.
there, you can have more success long term because you showed that you were dedicated?
Absolutely. Yep,
Okay. Okay.
absolutely.
And again, that's keeping a peace of mind as parents too, because I think that's
Yeah.
something that a lot of people ask me in regards to minimalism and just simplifying. And again, I don't have
Mhm.
teenagers yet, so I'm not
Yeah.
necessarily, I haven't crossed this
Mhm.
bridge. But to me, I'm like, you get one thing because there's
Yeah.
three of them. There's three kids that I'm going to be managing, not to mention my
Right.
own schedule. And I can die
Mhm.
to myself, sure, but there's
Yeah.
still only enough. There's only so much time in the day. And so
Right.
let's not overwhelm yourself. And if it's the right fit for you for school, like it's going to be the right
Mhm.
fit. And I personally
Right.
believe what's meant to be is meant to be. I
Yes.
believe God ordained our steps
Mhm.
in that way. But my other question for you is okay, so you said from ninth to 12th grade. So
Mhm.
we are starting these conversations in ninth grade, but when do we
Yeah.
really need to go all out and be very intentional about starting to apply?
I would well, the application doesn't take place until senior year.
Okay.
And in terms of thinking about just being intentional around supporting your teen, I would say it starts in the middle school years because one of the things to be intentional about for sure is the classes that they're taking and their math placement. And it's also helping them to develop in those critical social skills that oftentimes we just take for granted in many ways. And so for my middle schoolers, I did allow them to do a summer camp where they were away from home for a week as a way to learn how to make friends, learn how to uh, do your laundry and do some simple things. But I think it also helps with learning how to self advocate and to interact with adults. And so those were some skills that they were starting to learn in a safe environment so that when they were in high school, they could still continue to build on those skills and add on things like the time management and organizational skills that were age appropriate. And
Huh.
so,
Yeah. How do we keep from coming across as nagging with our teens as we want you said we want them to take the reins here. Like we want to encourage them to
yeah.
be adults. They're going to not live under a roof for much longer,
Mhm.
but how do we come across like how can we just maintain like a good relationship with them? Because I don't want to always be bombarding my kid or feeling like I'm this oppressor.
Yeah, I think it's about getting help
Mhm.
and still, having, a godparent, a coach, a mentor that's also saying those things as opposed to you being the only one saying it. And it could be, from their teacher, if they have a teacher that they're close to at school, having a relationship with them and talking with them about things that you'd like to encourage with them. And that way they hear from someone else other than you, and you're not nagging them. And I think also modeling as well. One of the things that parents oftentimes have to nag about is reading. And if we're reading for pleasure ourselves, also if we're taking time for ourselves, then our kids learn that too. And I think one of the things I talk most with my moms about is still having dates with themselves or having dates with their spouse and it not being all about the kids because that then really becomes a burden on them. And you don't want that. You want to be
Yeah.
able to have a good relationship with them and enjoy the teen years. And it's not about you nagging or them feeling like you are just on them all the time.
Yes, absolutely. So before we wrap up, I want to talk about college scholarships. We talked a little bit about that,
Yeah.
but is there anything else that we need to know? Any myths that I know you talk about debunking college
Mhm.
scholarship myths? Gosh, that's a mouthful.
Yeah.
That could cost us thousands. So what are some of those myths?
Oh, the biggest one is feeling that scholarships are only available in senior year. And there are scholarships available as early as age 13. And they're available all the time. And one of the things that we had created several years ago was a scholarship calendar that has for each month of the year, here are scholarships. And some of them are for middle schoolers, some of them are for 10th graders or ninth graders. And it's not about waiting until the end. And the second one is I would say just because you are a two earner family with a higher income doesn't mean that you do not qualify for any scholarships. That's what probably one of the biggest myths.
Okay, I didn't know that either. In regards to students taking college courses in high school, that can obviously be a beneficial thing to cut down on college fees as well, right? I wonder what the load is.
Yeah, it's not always the case. It's really going to depend on the college. Just like we talked about earlier, everything varies based on the college. And yes, that may work for some or a couple of colleges on their list, but not all. And in some cases, it may be better to take your more advanced classes at your high school as opposed to taking them at a local community college.
Okay, that makes sense too. I didn't fully think that through. Like I said, Pamela, I'm not in this stage yet, but I know that so many of my listeners are, and that's why I wanted to have you on today because
Right.
I don't want to overlook the areas just because I'm not in them yet. This is something that people
Mhm.
do need to be intentional with.
Right.
We're very intentional with our finances. And so this is something that
Mhm.
can really, I mean, students are buried under student loan debt right now.
Right.
And so if we can be a little bit more strategic beforehand to see what opportunities we may have missed,
Mhm.
what a blessing to us if we can get ahead of
Right.
it.
Right, exactly, exactly. And even something like just, your teen staying in one foreign language for each year of high school can make
Yeah.
a difference. Because
Yeah.
I'll see seniors sometimes where they only have 2 years of a language because that's what their school required. But it's like that limits their list. And it also then limits their scholarship potential as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Pamela, where can listeners connect with you? Do you help people virtually or just locally?
I do work with people virtually.
Okay,
Yes,
so
and I
where can
have been ever since I started.
yeah.
So, yes, definitely so. Well, one of the things, Diane, that I have for your listeners, because I appreciate them waiting until the end and still listening, is I have a college success blueprint, which is a step by step guide for them on what to do, as well as a communication tip sheet to help with how to talk with your teen about college. And they can get access to that blueprint at by connecting with me on LinkedIn at Dr. Pamela Ellis, Dr. Pamela, Pamela, Ellis, Ellis. And they can just message me the word blueprint 25 and I'll get it to them.
Perfect. Well, Pamela, if you've been listening to the Minimalist Moms, you know that I ask my guest two questions at the end. And the first one is, what's been a beneficial resource in your life that you want to share with the listeners?
Yeah, a really beneficial resource for me has been a book that's come out called The Anxious Generation. It's informed everything that we are doing now in our program around supporting teens and also supporting our parents as well. And so that's been a great resource for me as well as all the families that we work with.
Okay, great. Well, I'll be sure to include everything you've talked about, by the way, in the show
Mhm.
notes for listeners. But then my last question for you is, what is something that you can't stop talking about?
I can't stop talking about the importance of self care and self care daily. And what I often share with people is that it doesn't have to be this big 2 hour thing that you do once a month, but self care can be about buying flowers and just having flowers in your space. So that's environmental self care.
Yeah.
It could be listening to music, and just the energy that brings. And
Mhm.
so just being reminded that daily you can do something that takes care of you and fuels your spirit and just blesses you in a special way. And maybe it's breathing for 2 minutes or just taking time out to journal.
Mm,
So
mhm.
that's what I talk about every day, all the time. Is just simple daily ways to take care of ourselves. Because I know as moms, we don't do it enough. And we feel like, oh, we may feel guilty if we have to take time away from our kids. But no, you can do it at any moment. You can just
Mhm.
take that moment for yourself. So that's
What are
what
you
I
gonna
can't
do?
stop
What are you
talking about.
doing today? What's your self-care today?
Oh my goodness, journaling.
Journaling.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
journaling. Yeah.
I need to go to Trader Joe's tomorrow, so I might get myself something fun in their little flower section.
Mhm.
It's very reasonably
Yes.
priced. They're pumpkins and
Yes.
all that fun stuff that they have for the harvest season. So I might do that tomorrow because
Yes.
I do so enjoy that.
Yes. I go to Trader Joe's weekly to get flowers, and I have a beautiful bouquet right here on my desk. So,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. It's a good price point there for sure.
Good.
Well, Pamela, thanks so much for joining me. Like I said, I was so happy that you had reached out because this is something that it's not the forefront of my mind right now, but still so
Yes.
necessary for listeners that have teenagers. So thanks for joining me and giving us all this information. You have so much more information on your website, and it was just a
Yes.
joy to talk to you.
Thank you so much, Diane, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day with your boys being at home. That's
Thanks.
awesome.